I trained killers, champions, warlords, but one human girl ended my career in 7 minutes. And the worst part? She warned me first. Look, I have been teaching combat for 17 cycles at Station Triumph 7, and I thought I had seen everything. Every species, every fighting style, every type of overconfident rookie who strutted into my training hall thinking they were destined for greatness. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day a human female walked through those doors. My name is Vector, by the way, third-ranked combat instructor in the Galactic League, decorated veteran of the Kresh-Voltan border conflicts, and holder of more championship titles than I care to count anymore. My Chaton plating bears the scars of 1,000 fights. My forearms have grappled with the strongest warriors the galaxy has produced, and my compound eyes have witnessed combat techniques from every corner of known space. So when I tell you that I know what I am talking about, believe me, I know what I am talking about. Humans. Let me tell you about humans. Everyone in the galaxy has heard the stories by now, right? The Deathworld species. The ones who evolved on a planet so ridiculously hostile that just existing there for a day would kill most civilized beings. Predators everywhere. Diseases that mutate faster than you can sequence them. Weather patterns that shift from peaceful to apocalyptic in moments. And gravity. Oh, do not even get me started on their gravity. 1.0 standard. Which does not sound like much until you realize that is nearly double what most species consider comfortable. The humans who had joined the Galactic Combat League before were all males. Big ones. Massive, actually. Walking slabs of muscle and scar tissue who fought like caged Grenthax beasts. They won matches through sheer, brutal, overwhelming force. No finesse, no technique, just raw Deathworld power channeled through fists and fury. The League had created an entire weight class just to contain them, because putting them against normal species was not a fight, it was a massacre. So, when the intake coordinator told me that our newest recruit was human, I was not particularly surprised. When she told me it was a human female, I laughed. Actually laughed, right in her face. A female? I said, clicking my mandibles in amusement. What? Are they running out of males already? Did they scrape the bottom of their warrior caste or something? The coordinator, a plenary named Shavala, who has dealt with my attitude for years, just gave me that look. You know the one. The look that says she is not paid enough to deal with my nonsense, but is going to remain professional anyway. Her test scores were exceptional, Vector, top percentile in reaction time, situational awareness, and adaptive strategy. The committee approved her application unanimously. Test scores, I muttered, waving 2 of my arms dismissively. Tests do not account for real combat. They do not measure what happens when someone twice your size is trying to cave your skull in. Besides, if the males are that strong, the females must be, what, half that? A quarter. How much sexual dimorphism do humans even have? Shavala pulled up a data file on her tablet. According to the biological surveys, human females typically have 55 to 65% of male upper body strength, but comparable or superior lower body strength and flexibility. Their endurance ratings are nearly identical. And before you say anything, remember that even at 60% of male human strength, she is still likely stronger than you. I laughed again. Could not help myself. Stronger than me? Have you lost your sensory organs, Shavala? I have carapace armor that can deflect blade strikes. I have 4 arms to her 2. I have been fighting since before she was probably born. Strength is not everything in combat. There is technique, experience, battle sense, the ability to read your opponent and exploit weaknesses before they even know they have them. Then teaching her should be easy for someone of your caliber, Shavala said sweetly. Too sweetly. That was a trap and I walked right into it. Fine, I said. Send her in. Let us see what Earth's finest has to offer. That was 3 days ago. 3 days that feel like 3 cycles now. Kira arrived on a transport from Earth, along with 2 other human recruits, both males who fit the exact template I expected. Broad shoulders, thick necks, hands like industrial clamps. They looked like they could punch through bulkheads. They probably could punch through bulkheads. The League officials assigned them to Instructor Gormak, who specialized in heavy combat styles. Perfect match. Then there was Kira. She was, by human standards, apparently average height, about 1.7 meters, which put her at eye level with me, though I had the bulk advantage by a considerable margin. She had dark hair pulled back into some sort of tail configuration, and her eyes, those bizarrely flat-colored human eyes, were a deep brown that seemed to take in everything without revealing anything. She wore the standard league training uniform, gray and form-fitting, and I could see the lean muscle definition in her arms and legs. Strong, sure, but not impressively so. Not compared to the males. Not compared to most of the other species in the program. What struck me most was her expression. Calm. Completely, utterly calm. No nervousness, no excitement, no hint of being overwhelmed by the fact that she was the only human female in a combat program filled with some of the most dangerous trained fighters in known space. She just looked around, assessed her surroundings, and nodded to herself like she had confirmed something she already suspected. "Vector," she said, walking directly up to me. Her voice was steady, neither aggressive nor submissive. "I am Kira. I am told you will be my primary instructor." I looked down at her. "Well, slightly down. That is correct. Welcome to Triumph 7. I hope you understand what you have signed up for. This is not a recreational program. This is elite-level combat training. Students get injured here regularly. Some quit within the first week. A few do not survive the full program." "I read the waiver," she said, and I swear there was the tiniest hint of amusement in her voice. "I am not concerned. Not concerned." This little Deathworlder, standing in front of a veteran combatant, who could snap her in half with 2 arms while using the other 2 to fight off attackers, was not concerned. I clicked my mandibles again, a habit when I am annoyed. "Confidence is good. Overconfidence gets you killed. Report to Training Hall 3 at 0600 tomorrow. Do not be late." "I will be there at 0545, she said, then turned and walked away without waiting to be dismissed. The other students noticed her immediately, of course. Hard not to. The training station housed approximately 40 active students at any given time, representing 17 different species. Humans were still a novelty, and a human female was practically a myth. Within hours, the rumors were spreading through the dormitories and training halls like wildfire. "Did you see her? She is tiny. I heard human females are not even fighters in their culture. They let the males do all the combat. What is the League thinking, accepting her? This is going to be embarrassing. Maybe it is some kind of diversity initiative. You know, politics. I heard all of it. I hear everything that happens on my station, and I did not correct any of it because, honestly, I agreed with most of it. This seemed like a terrible idea. The human males had proven themselves through sheer physical dominance, but what happened when you took away that overwhelming strength advantage? You got a fighter who was just decent. Maybe good, but not elite. Not League material. The first training session proved me right. Or so I thought. I had Kira run through the standard assessment protocols. Reaction drills, strength tests, endurance runs, flexibility evaluations, all the basic measurements we use to establish a baseline. She performed well. I will give her that. Her reaction time was exceptional, actually faster than mine if I am being honest, and her endurance was frankly ridiculous. She ran the stamina course in 1.2 standard gravity, which was higher than her homeworld, and barely seemed winded afterward. But her raw strength numbers were unremarkable by League standards. Good, but not outstanding. She could not match the heavy hitters, could not overpower the naturally armored species, could not outmuscle the bulk fighters. Adequate, I told her after reviewing the results. You have speed and stamina. Those are valuable assets. But in real combat, when someone gets their hands on you, those advantages disappear. You need to be strong enough to break holds, escape grapples, create space. Based on these numbers, I am not confident you can do that against most opponents. She looked at the data screen, then looked at me. These tests measure static strength and isolated muscle performance. Combat is not static. Combat is dynamic, kinetic, and heavily dependent on leverage, timing, and the efficient transfer of force. I appreciate the baseline data, but it does not tell you how I fight. Oh, she had an answer for everything, did she? Is that so? And how many real fights have you been in? Exactly. Enough, she said simply. Enough. Not a number, not a boast. Just enough. The other students were watching this exchange with great interest, especially Kolvan, a Rathani heavy class fighter with 6 limbs and natural bone plating that made him look like a walking fortress. He stepped forward, his bulk casting a shadow over both of us. "Instructor Vector," he rumbled in that deep Rathani voice that sounds like stones grinding together. "Perhaps a demonstration would be educational. I would be happy to spar with the new recruit. Controlled contact, of course. Just to see how she handles herself." I should have said no. In retrospect, I absolutely should have said no. But I was curious, and maybe a little bit eager to prove my point. "Kira, are you willing?" She turned to look at Colvan, evaluating him with those flat brown eyes. He outweighed her by at least 100 kilograms. He had reach armor, multiple striking limbs, and years of training. This was not a fair match by any definition. "Controlled contact?" she asked. "Of course," Colvan said, showing his teeth in what passed for a Rathani smile. "I would not want to actually hurt you on your first day." Kira smiled back. Small smile, barely there. How considerate. "Yes, let us spar." They moved to the center mat. The other students formed a circle around them, eager to see the new human get humbled. I gave the standard safety brief, established the rules, no lethal techniques, no strikes to critical biology zones. Stop when I say stop, and then signaled for them to begin. Colvan moved first, a probing jab with his upper right limb, testing her reactions. Kira slipped it easily, shifting her weight with minimal movement. He tried again, faster this time, combining it with a low strike from his lower left. She parried one, evaded the other, and reset her position. They circled each other, and I could see Colvan reassessing. She was faster than he expected. That was fine. He would adapt. He was a trained fighter, after all. Then he committed to a real attack. A grappling rush meant to close distance and use his superior strength to control her. It was a smart strategy against a smaller, lighter opponent. Get them on the ground, use weight and leverage, end the fight. Kira did not try to stop him. She did not brace herself or attempt to meet his charge with force. Instead, she moved laterally at the last possible instant, used his own momentum against him, and somehow, I am still not entirely sure how, she had his upper right arm hyperextended and was driving him face first toward the mat. He tried to counter with his other limbs, but she was already transitioning, flowing from one position to another like water finding the path of least resistance. Within 5 seconds of his charge, Colvan was on the ground with a human half his size controlling his entire body through a joint lock that looked painful even from where I stood. "Yield?" she asked calmly. Colvan, to his credit, did not panic. He tried to muscle out of it using his strength advantage to force his way free. It did not work. Every time he pushed, she adjusted, maintaining control without seeming to exert much effort at all. Finally, wisely, he tapped the mat 3 times. Kira released him immediately and helped him up. "Good match," she said. The training hall was completely silent. Colvan stood there, rubbing his arm, looking confused and slightly embarrassed. The other students stared. I stared. That was not supposed to happen. That was not how the scenario was supposed to play out. She was smaller, lighter, less experienced in league protocols. She should have been overwhelmed. She should have struggled. She should have lost. "Lucky," someone muttered from the crowd. "He underestimated her." Will not happen twice. But I was not so sure, because I saw something in that brief exchange that troubled me. Kira had not won through luck or because Colvan took her lightly. She won because she was genuinely skilled. Her technique was flawless. Her timing was perfect. Her understanding of body mechanics and leverage was beyond what most of my advanced students possessed. And most troubling of all, she had made it look easy. Over the next 2 days, she sparred with 5 more students. Different species, different fighting styles, different weight classes. She won 4 of those matches and fought the 5th to a draw. Not because she was stronger, not because she was bigger, but because she was faster, smarter, and more technically proficient than opponents who had been training at Triumph 7 for months or years. The students stopped mocking her. They started avoiding her, and I started to worry that I had made a serious miscalculation. On the 3rd day, I pulled her aside after training. "Your performance has been impressive," I admitted, "because I am not so proud that I cannot acknowledge skill when I see it. But you need to understand something. You are fighting students. Talented students. Yes, but still students. When you face a true master, someone with decades of experience and complete mastery of their art, speed and technique alone will not be enough. There are levels to combat that you have not yet experienced. She listened politely, her expression neutral. Are you offering to show me those levels, instructor? Was I actually considering fighting her myself? That seemed excessive, unnecessary. I was an instructor. My job was to teach, not to prove myself against students, but there was something about her attitude, that quiet confidence that bordered on arrogance, that made me want to put her in her place, to show her that there was a reason I held my position, to demonstrate the gap between good and great. If necessary, I said carefully. If I feel that a direct demonstration would be educational. Kira nodded slowly. I would welcome that opportunity. Whenever you feel the time is right, she paused and then added, almost as an afterthought. Though I should warn you, instructor, if we do spar, do not hold back on my account, and do not expect me to hold back either. I would hate for you to regret the decision. Regret the decision? Regret fighting a student 1/3 my age with half my experience. The audacity of this Deathworlder was unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Noted, I said stiffly. Dismissed. She left, and I stood there in the empty training hall, suddenly wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my teaching career. Week 2. That is when things started to get really interesting, and by interesting I mean infuriating. Kira did not just continue to perform well, she excelled. She dominated. She made my advanced students look like amateurs, and worse, she did it with this casual, almost effortless demeanor that made it seem like she was not even trying. Every drill I threw at her, she mastered within days. Every technique I demonstrated, she absorbed and adapted to her own style. Every challenge I presented, she met with that same calm, focused intensity that was starting to drive me absolutely insane. The reaction speed drills. She broke the station record. Not the human record, not the female record, the station record, held previously by a Valorian whose entire species evolved as pursuit predators with neural pathways optimized for split-second decisions. Kira beat it by 0.03 seconds, which does not sound like much until you realize that at combat speeds, that is the difference between blocking a strike and taking it to the face. The endurance trials? She ran them in 1.4 gravity, which is higher than even I train at regularly, and she did not just complete them. She finished in the top 5 percentile and then asked if she could run them again to improve her time. Improve her time. Like she was training for a recreational event and not pushing her body through conditions that would hospitalize most species. The tactical simulations. Perfect scores. 3 days in a row. Perfect scores. The simulations are designed to be unsolvable, to present no-win scenarios where students have to choose the least bad option and learn to operate under pressure. Kira found solutions. Creative, unorthodox, occasionally borderline insane solutions, but solutions nonetheless. She exploited environmental factors no one else noticed, used misdirection and timing in ways that should not have worked but did, and adapted to changing conditions faster than the simulation could compensate. My other instructors started talking. Gormek pulled me aside after observing one of her sessions. Vector, that human of yours is remarkable. Her spatial awareness is beyond anything I have seen outside of natural flyers. Have you considered moving her up to advanced classes early? She has been here 2 weeks, I said through clenched mandibles. 2 weeks? You do not advance someone to elite levels based on 2 weeks of performance. She needs time to develop, to mature, to face real adversity. Gormak gave me a look. You know, another one of those looks. What exactly would you call what she has been facing? She is outperforming students who have trained here for cycles. If that is not real adversity, what is? I did not have a good answer for that, so I changed the subject. The social dynamics among the students shifted dramatically. At first, there was resentment. Nobody likes being shown up by the new recruit, especially when that recruit does not fit the expected profile of a dominant fighter. Kolvan, to his credit, took his loss well and even started training with Kira regularly, trying to learn from her technique, but others were less gracious. A Krithian named Sekthar, who prided himself on his striking ability, made it his personal mission to prove that Kira's success was a fluke. He challenged her constantly, both in sanctioned sparring and in casual training exercises. She beat him every single time, not narrowly, decisively. After the 5th loss, he stopped challenging her and started spreading rumors instead. She is using illegal augmentation. he hissed to anyone who would listen. No natural organism moves like that. She has cybernetic enhancements, neural accelerators, something. The League should test her. They did test her. Full biological scan, genetic analysis, the complete examination protocol. The results? Completely baseline human. No augmentation, no enhancement, no modifications of any kind. Just a human female from Earth with natural abilities honed through training. The doctor who reviewed the results actually seemed disappointed that there was not some exotic explanation for her performance. But how is she that fast? Sexar demanded when the results came back clean. How does she process combat information that quickly? It defies biological limitations. Not human biological limitations, apparently, I muttered, because even I had to admit that her reaction speed seemed almost supernatural. But the scans did not lie. This was just what a well-trained human could do. Terrifying thought, really. Other students took different approaches. Some tried to befriend her, hoping to learn her secrets. Kira was polite but distant, focusing entirely on training rather than social bonding. Some avoided her altogether, intimidated by her presence, and a few, a very problematic few, decided that if they could not beat her in sanctioned matches, they would find other ways to assert dominance. The incident in the cafeteria was the first real problem. 3 students, 2 Gorvash and a Thandrian, cornered Kira during evening meal cycle. The Gorvash are large, aggressive, and not particularly bright. The Thandrian, a female named Zelareth, should have known better but apparently decided to follow the crowd. They blocked Kira from leaving her table, made thinly veiled threats about what happens to humans who do not know their place, and one of the Gorvash actually put his hand on her shoulder in what was clearly meant to be an intimidating gesture. Kira looked at the hand, looked up at the Gorvash, and said in that perfectly calm voice, "You have 3 seconds to remove your hand before I remove it for you. 1, 2. He laughed. Actually laughed. "You think you can threaten me, Deathworlder? I will break you in half." 3. Kira said. What happened next happened very, very fast. The Gorvash went from standing upright to flat on his back with his arm bent at an angle that made everyone in the cafeteria wince. Kira had moved so quickly that most observers, myself included because yes, I was watching, could not track the exact sequence of movements. One moment she was sitting, the next moment he was down and she was standing over him with complete control of his limb. "I warned you," she said quietly. "Now apologize, and I will let you up. Refuse, and I will dislocate your shoulder." He apologized. Stammered it out while his friends backed away with their hands raised. Kira released him, helped him up, and then calmly returned to her meal like nothing had happened. The cafeteria, which had gone completely silent, slowly resumed normal activity, but everyone was looking at Kira differently now, not with contempt or amusement, with fear, with respect, with the understanding that this human, this supposedly weaker female from the Deathworld, was not someone you pushed without expecting severe consequences. I should have addressed it immediately. Should have disciplined all parties involved, reinforced the rules about unauthorized physical altercations, de-escalated the situation professionally. Instead, I did nothing, because part of me, a petty, frustrated part of me, was glad that those students learned a hard lesson about underestimating opponents, and another part of me, the part I am not proud of, was annoyed that Kira kept proving me wrong. My warnings to her became more frequent and more pointed. "You are making enemies," I told her after a particularly dominant sparring performance where she defeated 3 opponents in succession without taking a single clean hit. "You are embarrassing students who have worked for cycles to reach their current level. This will create problems for you." "I am not trying to embarrass anyone," she said, wiping sweat from her face with a towel. "I am just training. If people feel embarrassed by that, maybe they should train harder." The casual dismissal in her tone made my mandibles click involuntarily. "You think it is that simple? You think effort is all that matters? Some of these students have physical limitations. They will never be as fast as you. They will never have your reaction time. And you humiliating them repeatedly does not make you a better fighter. It makes you arrogant." She stopped wiping her face and looked at me directly. "Instructor Vector, with respect, is this about them or about you? The audacity, the absolute audacity of this question." "Excuse me?" You have been increasingly critical of my performance despite the fact that by every measurable standard I am exceeding expectations. You warned me about overconfidence, but I have backed up every claim with results. You suggested I could not handle advanced opponents, but I have defeated everyone you have put in front of me. So I am wondering if perhaps the issue is not that I am arrogant, but that my success challenges your assumptions about what a human female should be capable of. I wanted to argue, wanted to put her in her place with a devastating verbal response that would shut down her impertinence immediately. But I could not, because she was right. She was absolutely, infuriatingly right. I had assumed she would fail, wanted her to fail if I am being completely honest, and her continued success was a direct challenge to my credibility as an instructor who could assess talent and predict outcomes. You are out of line, I said finally, because I had no better response. Yes, instructor, she said, not sounding particularly sorry. May I be dismissed? I dismissed her, and then I stood there in the training hall, feeling my frustration boil over into something darker, something that demanded resolution. I had spent my entire career building a reputation as one of the finest combat instructors in the Galactic League. I had trained champions, produced warriors who went on to legendary status, and maintained standards that ensured only the truly exceptional graduated from my program. And now this human, this newcomer who had been here less than a month, was making me look foolish, making me question my own judgment, making me wonder if I actually understood combat as well as I thought I did. No, that was unacceptable. She was skilled, I would grant her that, but she had not faced a true master yet, had not been tested by someone who had spent decades perfecting their art. She had beaten students, yes, but students were students. There were levels to combat expertise that she could not possibly comprehend yet. Experience mattered. Battle-tested instincts mattered. The wisdom that came from surviving hundreds of real fights mattered. I made my decision that night. If Kira wanted to prove herself against the best, I would give her that opportunity. I would challenge her publicly under official league protocols, and I would demonstrate once and for all the difference between natural talent and true mastery. It would be educational for everyone involved. The students would see what elite-level combat actually looked like. Kira would learn humility, and I would re-establish the natural order of instructor above student. The next morning I called an assembly in the main training hall. All students, all instructors, full attendance mandatory. 43 beings gathered in a circle around the center mat, murmuring amongst themselves, wondering what this was about. I stood in the middle, waiting for silence. Kira stood with the other students, her expression curious but not concerned. Students of Triumph 7, I began, projecting my voice to fill the space. We are here to discuss standards, excellence, what it truly means to be a warrior worthy of the Galactic Combat League. Many of you have trained here for months, some for cycles, learning the disciplines required to fight at the highest levels. You have sweated, bled, and pushed yourselves beyond what you thought possible. And recently you have witnessed a new student achieve remarkable results in a very short time. Eyes turned toward Kira. She did not react, just stood there calmly, waiting to see where this was going. But results in training do not always translate to results in real combat. I continued. Controlled sparring against fellow students is valuable, but it is not the same as facing an opponent with decades of experience. Someone who has survived real battles, who has mastered not just technique, but strategy, timing, and the mental discipline required to function when everything is on the line. The difference between good and great is not always obvious until you experience it directly. I turned to face Kira. Therefore, I am issuing a formal challenge. Kira of Earth, I challenge you to an official sanctioned match, full league protocols, to be held 3 days from now. You will have the opportunity to test your skills against a master-level opponent. This will be educational for you and for everyone watching. Do you accept? The hall was silent. Every eye locked on Kira. This was not a normal situation. Instructors rarely fought students in official matches. When they did, it was usually for demonstration purposes, showing technique in a controlled environment. This was different. This was a challenge, a public challenge, with my reputation on the line and hers as well. Kira was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Then she stepped forward, moving to the center of the mat so we stood face to face. Well, face to face, equivalent given our different anatomies. I accept your challenge, Instructor Victor, she said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Under full league protocols 3 days from now, the crowd erupted in excited chatter. Students placing bets, instructors debating outcomes, everyone suddenly energized by the prospect of this match. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. I had drawn the line, issued the challenge, and would soon demonstrate proper dominance. But then Kira spoke again, and her voice cut through the noise like a blade. However, I want to be very clear about something, instructor. You asked me to accept this challenge, and I have, but I warned you once before, and I will warn you again now in front of everyone. When we fight, I will not hold back. I will treat you like I would treat any opponent in a real match. And if you lose, if I defeat you in front of your students and peers, that will change how everyone here sees you. Your authority, your reputation, your status as a master, all of it will be questioned. So before we commit to this officially, before we make this binding under league protocols, I am giving you one last opportunity to reconsider. She paused, and her eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that was almost physical. Because if we do this, Instructor Victor, I promise you will regret it. The training hall went absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop, a feather fall, a molecule vibrate. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. Everyone just stared at this human female who had just told a decorated master instructor that he would regret fighting her. My pride, my ego, my entire sense of self-worth, all of it demanded that I respond with overwhelming force. 3 days, I said coldly. 0900 hours. Main arena. We will see who regrets what. Kira nodded once. Yes, instructor, we will. She turned and walked away, and the crowd parted for her like she was royalty. The other students started talking all at once, the noise level rising to a chaotic crescendo of speculation and excitement. Gormak approached me, his expression concerned. Vector, are you certain about this? She is good. Very good. You might actually lose. I will not lose, I said, with more confidence than I felt. I have forgotten more about combat than she has ever learned. 3 days. I just need 3 days to prepare, to study her style, to find her weaknesses. Every fighter has weaknesses. I will find hers. But as I walked to my quarters that night, as I began reviewing footage of Kira's training sessions and analyzing her techniques, a small voice in the back of my mind kept whispering something I did not want to hear. What if you are wrong? What if she is better? What if the Deathworlder female from Earth actually defeats you? I silenced that voice, buried it deep, focused on preparation. 3 days. In 3 days I would prove myself right. Or I would learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating humans. 3 days. I had 3 days to prepare for what should have been a straightforward demonstration of superior skill. 3 days to analyze every second of footage from Kira's training sessions, to identify patterns in her movement, to find the exploitable weaknesses that every fighter possesses. 3 days to convince myself that I was making the right decision. I watched her fight 12 different opponents across hours of recorded sessions. I slowed down the footage, frame by frame, studying her footwork, her weight distribution, her tendency to favor certain angles of attack. I consulted with other instructors, reviewed tactical assessments, even pulled up biological data on human physiology to understand the mechanical limitations of her species. What I found should have terrified me, should have made me reconsider the entire endeavor. But pride is a funny thing, is it not? It makes you see what you want to see, interpret data in ways that confirm your existing beliefs, ignore warning signs that are blazingly obvious in retrospect. Yes, she was fast. Exceptionally fast. But speed could be countered with experience and proper positioning. Yes, her technique was refined, but technique meant nothing if you could not overcome a significant physical advantage. Yes, she adapted quickly to different opponents, but she had never faced anyone with my level of expertise, my forearmed coordination, my decades of combat wisdom. I convinced myself I had her figured out. She relied on momentum and redirection, using opponents' force against them rather than meeting power with power. Classic technique for a smaller fighter. So I would not give her momentum to exploit. I would control the pace, use my reach advantage to keep her at distance, wear her down with precision strikes that she could not redirect or absorb. When she inevitably tried to close distance, I would be ready, using my superior grappling ability to neutralize her speed advantage. It was a good plan. A solid plan. A plan that made perfect sense based on everything I knew about combat theory and practical application. It was also completely, utterly, catastrophically wrong. Fight day arrived. The main arena was packed. Word had spread throughout Triumph 7 and even to other stations in the network. When an instructor publicly challenges a student, especially under circumstances as dramatic as these, people noted. The stands were filled with students, off-duty personnel, visiting delegates, even some league officials who happened to be in the sector. Everyone wanted to see how this would play out. I entered the arena to respectful applause, wearing my formal combat gear, my chitin plating polished to a shine. I stretched my forearms, rolled my shoulders, and focused my breathing the way I had done before. 1,000 fights. I was ready, confident. This was my domain, my arena, my moment to re-establish the natural order. Kira entered from the opposite side, wearing standard training attire, no special equipment, no ceremonial presentation. She looked small under the arena lights, almost fragile compared to my bulk. The contrast was stark, obvious. I outweighed her by at least 60 kilograms. I had twice as many striking limbs. I had natural armor plating. Every physical advantage belonged to me. She walked to the center mat, stretched briefly, and then stood perfectly still, her expression calm and focused. No trash talk, no posturing, no psychological games, just quiet readiness. The referee, a neutral plenary official, reviewed the rules. Full contact sanctioned match under league protocols. Victory by submission, knockout, or referee stoppage. No lethal techniques, no strikes to species-specific critical zones. Fight continues until decisive conclusion. Both fighters acknowledged understanding and consent. Fighters ready? The referee called. I raised two of my arms in the traditional salute. Ready. Kira nodded. Ready. Begin. I moved first, establishing range with a probing jab from my upper right arm, testing her reactions just as I had planned. She slipped it with minimal movement, exactly as I expected. I followed with a combination, upper left high, lower right to the body, maintaining distance and control. She evaded both, her footwork precise and economical. Good. Let her move. Let her expend energy while I stayed patient and methodical. We circled each other, and I continued to work my range game, throwing strikes that were not meant to land but to control space and gather information. She defended well, never overcommitting to counters, staying mobile and light on her feet. This was going according to plan. I was the aggressor, dictating pace and position. She was reacting, playing defense, exactly where I wanted her. Then I committed to a real combination, a 4-strike sequence designed to overwhelm her defensive capacity. Upper arms high, drawing her guard up, then both lower arms to the body simultaneously. She could not block all 4. No one could block all 4. This was why 4 arms were such a devastating advantage. Except she did not try to block all 4. She moved inside the combination, slipping between my strikes with a fluidity that seemed physically impossible given the limited space, and suddenly she was inside my guard. Too close. Dangerously close. I tried to clinch, to use my grappling advantage, but she was already moving, striking my lead knee with a low kick that buckled my stance and throwing an elbow that caught me square in the mandible. Pain. Sharp and surprising. I had not been hit cleanly in a sparring match in cycles. I reset, backing off to create space, reassessing. That was lucky. A lucky sequence. I would not make that mistake again. We engaged again, and this time I was more cautious, using my reach to keep her at bay, not overcommitting to combinations. But Kira was not content to stay at distance anymore. She pressed forward, slipping my jabs, ducking under cross strikes, closing distance with a speed that was frankly alarming. I threw everything I had, forearmed combinations that should have been impossible to evade in such a confined space, but she moved through them like smoke, like she could see the attacks coming before I threw them. She hit me again, a body shot that knocked the air from my lungs, then a leg kick that made my knee scream in protest, then another elbow, this one catching my lower left arm and sending a spike of pain through the joint. I was getting hit, not occasionally, consistently. She was landing clean strikes while I was hitting nothing but air. This was not how it was supposed to go. This was not according to plan. I was the master. I was the experienced fighter. I should have been dominating her, teaching her lessons about the gap between talent and true expertise. Instead, I was getting picked apart by a human half my size who moved like she could predict the future. I changed tactics, abandoning the striking game entirely and shooting for a takedown. If I could get her to the ground, my weight and grappling advantage would be decisive. She could not evade what she could not see coming, and ground fighting was where physics mattered more than speed. I closed distance fast, all four arms reaching for grips, my momentum carrying me forward with the full force of my mass behind it. Kira sprawled. Perfect technique, perfect timing, hips back and base widened to defend the takedown. But I had expected that, adjusted my grips, and managed to secure her in a body lock. Finally, I had her. This was over. I would take her down, establish control and finish the fight with a submission. She was skilled, I would give her that much credit, but now she was caught. Except I did not take her down. She did something with her hips, some rotation or adjustment that I could not quite track, and suddenly my balance was gone. My weight, which should have been an advantage, became a liability. She used my own momentum, added something to it, some subtle shift in force and angle, and I was the one going down. Hard, face first onto the mat with a human female on my back. No, this was wrong. This was backwards. I tried to turn, to buck her off, to use my forearms to break her control, but she had established position with terrifying efficiency, her legs hooked around my waist, one arm controlling my upper right, the other arm sliding under my throat. A choke. She was setting up a choke. I fought it. Fought with everything I had, decades of experience and training screaming at me to defend, to hand fight to create space. But her technique was flawless, her positioning was perfect, and her grip was far stronger than her size suggested. The choke tightened, not slowly, not gradually, with sudden decisive pressure that cut off blood flow to my brain almost immediately. Panic set in. Real panic. The kind you feel when you realize you are truly in danger, when your body's survival instincts override your conscious mind and scream at you to do something, anything to escape. I thrashed. I tried to roll. I used all four arms to pry at her grip. Nothing worked. She had me. Completely, utterly had me, and the world started to go gray at the edges. I slapped the mat with my lower right arm, the universal signal of submission. Once, twice, 3 times. Desperate. Emphatic. Undeniable. Kira released immediately. The pressure vanished, air rushed back into my lungs, and I collapsed face down on the mat, gasping and disoriented. The arena was silent, completely silent. No cheering, no gasping, no reaction at all. Just shocked, disbelieving silence as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. The referee's voice cut through the quiet, professional and matter-of-fact. Submission. Winner, Kira of Earth. I lay there for a moment longer, my body screaming at me, my pride shattered into 1,000 pieces. A human female. A student who had been at Triumph 7 for less than a month. She had just defeated me, decisively, in front of everyone, in front of students who looked to me for guidance, instructors who considered me a peer, officials who evaluated my program's credibility. She had choked me unconscious, or nearly so, and made it look easy. Kira stood up, breathing heavily but not exhausted, and offered me a hand. I stared at it for a moment, considering refusing out of sheer stubborn pride, but that would make this even worse, would make me look like a poor loser on top of everything else. I took her hand, and she helped me to my feet. Her grip was strong, steady, not gloating, not mocking, just the gesture of one fighter to another. "Good match, instructor," she said quietly, "for my ears only. I meant what I said. I did not want you to regret this, but you insisted. I hope you learned something valuable." She walked away, leaving me standing in the center of the arena surrounded by silence and the weight of my own humiliation. Slowly, hesitantly, applause began. Not for me, for her. It started with one person, then spread through the crowd, building into genuine appreciation for the skill they had witnessed. The human had earned their respect through undeniable demonstration. The aftermath was complicated, painful, educational in ways I had not anticipated. Some students looked at me differently now, not with disrespect exactly, but with a new understanding that I was not invincible, that my expertise had limits, that confidence without humility was just arrogance waiting to be corrected. Others, surprisingly, seemed to respect me more. Cormac pulled me aside later and said something I did not expect. "You challenged her knowing you might lose," he said. "That took courage, and you accepted defeat with dignity. That took character." The students saw both. "That is worth something." Maybe it was worth something, but it still hurt, still stung every time I walked past the arena where I had been so thoroughly defeated. Kira, for her part, did not gloat, did not change her behavior. She continued training with the same focus and intensity, continued treating me with the same respect she had shown before, continued pushing herself and her fellow students to improve. If anything, she seemed almost apologetic about the whole thing, like she genuinely wished I had listened to her warnings. 3 weeks after our match, I called her to my office. She arrived promptly, as always, and stood at attention. "You wanted to see me, instructor." I gestured for her to sit. She did, looking curious but not concerned. I gathered my thoughts, trying to find the right words for what I needed to say. "I owe you an apology," I said finally. "I challenged you for the wrong reasons. Not to teach you, not to evaluate your progress, but to prove myself right and you wrong, to put you in what I thought was your proper place. That was inappropriate, unprofessional, and unfair to you." Kira listened quietly, her expression thoughtful. "I appreciate that, instructor, but you also gave me an opportunity to prove myself against the best. That has value too. The other students take me seriously now, not because I am human, not because of my species' reputation, but because I earned their respect through demonstrated ability. You gave me that platform even if your motivations were complicated." I clicked my mandibles, a laugh without humor. "That is a generous interpretation. The truth is, I underestimated you. I made assumptions based on your appearance, your gender, your time in the program. I thought I knew what you were capable of, and I was wrong. Spectacularly wrong. You are not just skilled. You are exceptional. One of the best natural fighters I have ever encountered, and I have encountered many across multiple species over multiple decades." "Thank you," she said simply. "But I need to understand something," I continued, leaning forward. "How? Your reaction time, your ability to read attacks before they land, your technical mastery, all of it seems beyond what should be possible with your training background. Where did you learn to fight like that?" Kira was quiet for a moment, and something flickered across her face. "Memory, maybe. Something old and not entirely pleasant. Earth is a death world, instructor. You know this. What you might not fully appreciate is what that means for those of us who grow up there. We do not just survive in hostile environments, we compete in them. Against predators, against each other, against the planet itself. I started training in martial arts when I was 6 years old. Not as recreation, as survival skill. By the time I was 12, I was competing in full-contact tournaments against adults. By 15, I was teaching. By 20, I had fought professionally in 3 different combat sports. I have been training for fighting my entire life, because on Earth you either learn to defend yourself or you become prey." She paused, her eyes distant. "And yes, our reflexes are faster. Our threat assessment processing is more efficient. Our pain tolerance is higher. Because those are the traits that survive on a planet trying to kill you every single day. We are not augmented, not enhanced. We are just products of our environment. Darwin's natural selection on a world where everything wants you dead." I sat back, processing this information. It made sense. Terrible, frightening sense. Humans were not just strong or fast or resilient. They were evolutionary pressure-tested by a planet that made most of the galaxy look safe by comparison. Every human who survived to adulthood on Earth was a walking miracle of adaptation and developed skill. "I will not make the same mistake again," I said finally. "With you or with any other human who enters this program. You have taught me a valuable lesson about assumptions and respect. Thank you for that." "Even though it hurt," Kira smiled, a real smile this time. "Pain is an excellent teacher, instructor. You taught me that in your very first lecture." She left, and I sat in my office, thinking about Deathworlders and humans and the dangerous assumptions that people, even experienced people like me, make when evaluating others. The The real truth that I finally accepted was simple and humbling. I had warned her not to fight me, told her she was not ready, that she would be overwhelmed, that she would learn harsh lessons about the difference between good and great. She had warned me not to regret challenging her. Told me that if we fought, I would lose, that my reputation would suffer, that I was making a mistake. I had not listened. I had pushed forward anyway, confident in my superiority, blind to the reality standing right in front of me. And now I would spend the rest of my career remembering the day a human female from Earth choked me unconscious in front of everyone I knew and forced me to confront the limits of my own wisdom. The worst part? She had been merciful. I reviewed the footage later, analyzing the fight with as much objectivity as I could manage. She could have hurt me badly, could have broken bones, torn ligaments, caused serious injury, but she had controlled the fight with precision, taking me down and finishing with a choke that incapacitated without causing lasting damage. She had beaten me decisively while showing restraint and professionalism. That, more than anything else, was the lesson. She was not just a better fighter, she was a better person than I had given her credit for. Kira graduated from Triumph 7 6 months later with the highest marks in the station's history. She went on to compete in the Galactic Combat League professionally, won multiple championships, and became something of a legend in her own right. Other humans followed, both male and female, and the league had to completely restructure its weight classes and competition categories to account for what Deathworld physiology could achieve. As for me, I am still teaching, still training the next generation of warriors, still sharing the lessons I have learned over decades of combat experience. But now I teach with humility, with awareness that expertise is not the same as omniscience, with respect for every student who walks through my doors regardless of their appearance or background or where they fall on anyone's preconceived hierarchy of capability, because I learned, the hard way, what happens when you underestimate a human, especially when that human has already warned you, calmly and clearly, exactly what will happen if you do. They were right, I regretted it. But I also grew from it. And maybe, just maybe, that makes the humiliation worth it. Maybe.